Bar number 1. Take it down. Kamala. No organic matter detected.
We are talking Space Sweepers, which is also known as Spaceship Victory, along with a variety of other regional titles depending on what country you are in. This is a Korean movie, however, directed by Sung-hee, but does have quite an international cast. The most recognisable name for Western audiences will be Richard Armitage, who of course was in the Hobbit movies. Now, the movie bears a striking resemblance to Guardians of the Galaxy, a film that I think it was clearly influenced by, although I do believe this is actually based off some kind of like Korean kind of style manga or something along the lines of that. But there is actually another space opera that I feel this movie is even more like, and one that I feel a lot of people won't make the connection with, and that is Roger Corman produced movie Space Raiders, a long forgotten science fiction, should we call it epic, that maybe slipped under the radar for a lot of people. If you're familiar with Space Raiders, when I tell you the plot, you'll kind of see what I mean. So it focuses on this crew of this spaceship who are all kind of scoundrels. They have various kind of criminal backgrounds and shenanigans that have they've had in previous lives, and they are essentially a salvage ship going around trying to kind of salvage scrap, etc. And one day they come across this ship which contains this young child in there, and they obviously having to look after this child initially. They see on the news that there is this may well be an android that actually has a hydrogen bomb implanted in there, and of course they are immediately somewhat fearful of it. We have this kind of corporate overlord played by Richard Armitage, who is the kind of this guy who essentially wants to colonize Mars, and he's kind of Earth now is kind of at the end of its tether. It's kind of polluted and everything, and he is kind of in charge of this very kind of quite strict class system where the rich and the elite are kind of living above the Earth on kind of space stations, whilst the kind of the common people are choking in the smog back on Earth. Now this motley crew of Guardians of the Galaxy end up kind of bonding with this child, going on various kind of space adventures that deal with conspiracy, capitalism, and space battles. What'll happen? You'll have to watch the movie to find out. This is quite a in-depth movie with kind of a lot of moving parts, so I have condensed that plot quite significantly, but I don't want to give away too much, obviously. What do we think? Like I said, this movie is strikingly similar to the movie Space Raiders in a lot of ways. You know, a motley crew of crooks and underworld types having to kind of look after this child, going on space events, all the meantime becoming more protective of it. I bet you no one else will make that connection, but that's what we're all about here. Anyway, this movie is pretty good, and it shows that you don't need a mega budget to do a decent special effects driven science fiction movie. The special effects here, for the budget, are very, very impressive, and they are not sparsely used. There is practically an effect shot in every other scene here, and it's impressive stuff as well. You know, believable kind of science fiction space battles, you know, armour and robots and all sorts of stuff. We have a really fantastic character. One of the crew is this kind of droid who has this kind of sassy attitude that really just talks like a kind of human, and it's a great character. I absolutely loved it. And also the camaraderie here between our four main kind of like crew members of this kind of mining ship is great. They all have very kind of different backgrounds, but we kind of do get a good amount of characterization. It's quite a long film. We do get a good quite a lot of characterization from all of these guys. The kid is super cute and actually will probably give you the feels in some aspects. Richard Armitage makes a great villain, which has some kind of complex. I don't want to go too much into spoilers here, but it kind of he has some complex motivations that runs parallels with greed and political motivations, things like that, which I think was quite kind of clever here. This is a long film, but I got to say, I didn't really ever get bored in it. I think maybe it's a little bit long for some, but we'll touch on that. But nonetheless, it is so kind of jam-packed, and there's so much kind of action going on and kind of moving parts. I really enjoyed it, and there's a few good surprises with the plot as well. It's like as it kind of goes along, and you generally have that feeling where you have like a punch in the air kind of like moment. I feel towards the climax, and think it is very well done. A thoroughly enjoyable film all round. To be honest with you, I think the soundtrack's great. The action is exciting. It's very well shot. On a technical level, I think it's very, very impressive. Do I have any niggle to this film? I do think it's a little long. It's 2.25 hours roughly, and it didn't quite need to be this long, to be honest with you. I felt if it had 20 to 30 minutes cut out, it would be a lot more of a punchy film. Even kind of, I don't know, 15 minutes or so. I just think it was a little long. And I have to say, the movie does start off on a bit of a wrong foot. I didn't think it started particularly well. The opening kind of 20 minutes or so, it was a little bit of ropey footing there, if that makes sense. It didn't really kind of set the tone particularly well, I didn't think, in that first 20 minutes or so. Some of the acting is a little bit kind of on the dicey side from here and there. It's always a little bit hard to judge kind of, non-English speaking language actors, but sometimes it's not terrible, but there was just a couple of instances where I felt the acting was a little bit OTT, shall we say. I also think the movie is somewhat over-sentimental, and you almost be forgiven for thinking you're watching a Pixar movie at some point, where the movie does try and take you on an emotional roller coaster. I have to say, maybe this is less of a criticism, more of a personal preference. There's something that happens right at the end of the movie. Maybe I would have liked to have seen it gone a different way, just to kind of make it a little bit more bittersweet. But overall, I think this is a thoroughly enjoyable space opera, and probably one of the best ones that we've seen in modern years. I mean, I guess this is probably on par with movies like Guardians of the Galaxy, really. I do think it's a pretty impressive movie that I think most science fiction fans will actually get a lot from, to be honest. I think it does start off a little bit rocky, and it is a little bit long. I guess I would give it a 7 out of 10 for that reason, because I do think that if it had been a little bit different at the beginning, a little bit shorter, maybe it could have got up to an 8 for me. But nonetheless, it's still a thoroughly enjoyable movie, very, very well made, with likeable characters that you remember and you want to see more of. So it's a 7 out of 10 for me. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I shall look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.